Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the iOS Lead Essentials podcast. Here we discuss the strategies in your journey to becoming a complete senior iOS developer. My name is Bogdan. I'm a senior iOS developer and lead instructor in the iOS Lead Essentials program, the online program for iOS developers who want to become complete senior developers. Today, our special guest is Damian from Argentina, a senior iOS developer and student of the iOS Lead Essentials program. Hello, Damian.
Hi, Bogdan. How's it going?
Good. How about you?
Good. A little bit hot here, but yeah.
Yeah, I know you're actually in Honduras.
Right. I live in an island in the middle of the Caribbean Sea.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I started the program while I was living in this island some time ago, and I would say my main achievements with the program is the much more confident I feel about my current skills regarding software development and iOS. I started iOS around 10 years ago when there was iOS 4. I always taught myself like I was a self-student, so I learned it and did some research and started developing with my own guidance during a lot of years. Of course, I learned from teammates, but I never had a iOS course until I joined the program. And what I was saying is that it helped me to be much more confident about my skills, learned a lot of new ways of achieving good and clean code. And it also helped me a lot with passing job interviews. The last thing I would say is that it made me realize about how important it is to be part of a community. I was not part of a software community in the past, maybe because I'm not a really social network person, but this course really made me realize about the importance of it. And I would say those are the three main aspects of the program I think it helped me a lot. Yeah.
Right. First of all, I want to say my sincere congratulations to you. It seems like you are actually living the dream, being able to work from an island, doing the thing that you love, programming, doing the other thing that you love, just scuba diving and being in nature a lot. Uh, that's amazing. I think it's a motivation to us all. Some of us that are maybe just in front of our computer all day.
Right. So regarding that, I want to say that I was an office person until 2015. I was going to the office every day, taking the subway from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m., going back home. And yeah, so at some point in my life, I said I want to do something different. What am I going to be doing in 10 years? Will I still be going to the office, taking the subway? And I wanted something new. And that's how I started with scuba diving. And then at some point, I said, maybe I can do both. Maybe I can do a remote work from this island where I'm living, because there's no software companies around here.
Right.
So maybe I can do a remote job and scuba dive at the same time. And that's when I started looking for a remote job. Now remote jobs are super everywhere because of the pandemic, right? But 4 years ago, it was not that common, right? Or 5 years ago. That's how I really focused on achieving that, and I finally got it working, and I was really happy when I achieved both. And I could manage both as well, because I could start managing my time. Maybe I would go diving in the morning and sit down and work in the afternoon, and maybe work in the weekends or take a day off during the week, and things like that.
That's great. So the plan here for today is to explain how you managed to do all of these, and for the people watching this podcast to stay until the end and learn how Damian did it and how you can achieve it too.
So I would say the main thing that helped me achieve that is not having. Sometimes it's hard to break your zone of comfort when you have a good job in a big city, when you have your friends, you have your apartment, you have your house, and you feel that something is missing, but you don't know how to fix it or how to change it.
Yeah.
In my case, what I said is, I'm still gonna have my friends there. An apartment is not really an issue. I can find an apartment somewhere else. I can probably find a job related to software somewhere else, which is fortunately something we can do anywhere in the world. So when you start figuring out that those things don't tie you so much to the place you are at, and you can maybe, in my case, it was moving to somewhere where I could do scuba diving. You start to realize that there's nothing holding you to do it, right? You can always focus and try to achieve it. That's what really drove me to not get tied to material things and go ahead, and that helps you also to be flexible to change, right? If you are always structured in one place and you don't want to change because you're fine with it,
You're maybe afraid, right?
maybe you're afraid, maybe you don't know what's going to happen. What if I fail? What if something doesn't go right? In my case, not everything was perfect. There were times where I had no money because I just left traveling. I just sold my things, went around traveling, and at some point I said, well, I don't have much money left. So what am I going to do? And you start thinking, did I do something wrong? What I should do now? But those are things you should have in mind as possible risks. But it's not that something. It's not that failure is gonna make you feel that you did something wrong. You always overcome that and find a solution and keep going, right?
Yeah.
So, oh yeah, that's my answer. I would say, don't get tied to your zone of comfort, material things, and if you know that you have to change something, just go ahead and change it. Then you will see if it was a good decision or not. But at that point, you thought it was a good decision. You cannot always know that what you do is going to be the right thing, right?
Right. Yeah, but at least you tried it. Because I think a lot of us just like maybe have ideas on how to fix things, how to make ourselves feel better. But it's exactly what you said. Like we're afraid to go outside the comfort zone, and that's limiting the options so much. So I'm really glad to have the chance to talk to someone like you that broke this chain and said, okay, I'm gonna do it and see what happens. And as you can see, amazing things can happen if you have the faith, a leap of faith to just try it out.
Right. I had this leap of faith on maybe I could invest in an iOS course because I hadn't had an investment in a course since university. And I would say I can say I didn't have like that much money to actually say, okay, I'm going to spend this money in the course, but I did it anyway, and it was one of the best things I could have done because after the course, I can say that it really improved my confidence, as I said in the past. I started passing interviews, and like it's not just about the coding and the good practices. It's also about the discipline that the course gives you and the steps you need to take to do problem solving. There were some things I already knew, but I never applied. like there were some of the lectures I said, yeah, I know this. Why didn't I ever apply it?
Right.
And the course really drove me to start applying good practice a lot more.
I'm curious, when you decided to join, what were you looking for, like, or what were the issues you were having?
I remember I was working at a project at that time. The and I was lacking knowledge in the sense that the I wasn't developing in a way which you could say it's a scalable or maintainable way. And so this is why when I said I need some kind of guidance on understanding new practices and new ways of do problem solving. And this is when I said I think I need a foundation other than just browsing in Stack Overflow or in the web. And after watching the link this teammate sent to me, I realized that that would be a good option.
Right.
And for me, it was a leap of faith. I'm saying I'm going to invest on this, and I really don't regret it at all.
Right.
Before that, I was failing a lot of interviews. When I started going back to software during my 2-year gap in software development because I was scuba diving, when I started going back to software, I struggled with a lot of interviews because I was self-teaching Swift to myself and iOS again. And after after just a couple of months in the course, not even finished the course, I started passing interviews. And when I realized in time is that I started changing the way I was seeing interviews. Instead of doing everything the interviewer was asking me and just going through, I don't know, 3-4 technical interviews until they actually told me what the project was about, I started switching the way around and actually interviewing the interviewers
Right.
about what was the role they were expecting from me, what kind of project it was, or how was the team formed, how do you to tell me what's a normal day of working with them.
Exactly.
and then I decided if I wanted to go into a technical interview or I wanted to pass on and find another opportunity, right? So that's one thing I changed in my mindset, and really helped me a lot to filter what I actually want and not just go to any interview to find any kind of job. Right now, I feel confident that I can find the project I want and not any project.
There's two things here from what you said that I really like. First is like the technical aspect maybe of an interview. So what the interview team expects you to deliver, and sometimes we can deliver on that. So yeah, on the technical side, just going through the program takes care of that. But there's also the aspect of an interview being two-sided conversation. So while you are interviewing them, they're interviewing you. So it's not just one way. And I think your approach has a lot of common sense in it, like not wasting both your and the other company's time if it's not a good match. Because I know a lot of people like go through the interview process, like they do what you said, like they follow everything the interviewer asks them to do, and they are happy at the end if they get the job. And they they start and they realize like this is not well suited for me, and I never took the time to ask about the setup and, like you said, just what's a regular day going to be like. Am I going to do overtime? Am I going to need to write tests or not? What's the overall flow? Like, how many features are we doing? Like, how are we doing them? All that stuff. So That's super important what you said, and I just wanted to underline that.
I also I tell the interviewers how I like working, and that if that would not be the case, then we would not be a good fit. For example, I tell them this way: I will not accept in my way of working that someone tells me you cannot do unit testing because that's not the policy here or something like that, right? Uh, the way I want to work is that when I want to implement something and develop something, testing is part of that feature I'm developing, right? It's not an add-on, it's not an extra,
Yeah.
it's part of the feature. So another thing I want to know is, for instance, this is a really common thing when they say, I ask them like, how do you estimate the feature? Like, how do you know? Because some companies in the day by day workload, they say we have this feature and we have 1 month to finish it, right? And then I think, how do you know you have 1 month to finish it? How uh, who estimated it? If the one that's going to be implementing it is, let's say, me or our team, technical team, it's like when you have a problem in your car and you take it to the mechanic and you say, there is a problem with my car, this is making some noise, and you have 1 day to fix it. That's not how you do it, right? You tell the mechanic what is going on and how long is it going to take to fix it, right?
Yeah.
And this is similar. Like there's a lot of uh, companies which they set the time frame, and you have to adapt to that time frame. Doesn't matter how. And what ends up happening is that your delivery is not the best quality,
Yeah.
and that's some things that in the interviews I go straight forward and say, if it's going to be this way, this I'm not going to be a good fit for that. So and even if they answer even if they respond in the way I want, and if even if they like I switch the interview, instead of them interviewing me, I switch it around. And even if they respond properly and I like it and they give me a good sensation and good feeling, sometimes when you join, it's not what they told you, right? And I think a good thing to do is to maybe propose having I would say a trial period, for both,
Yeah.
for them towards you and for you towards the company, right? Because sometimes it's not what they told you, and you have to stick for a year, 2 years, whatever, with the way they work, and maybe you don't like it and you are disappointed, and yeah.
To some degree, if somebody tries to force you to deliver something in a non-reasonable time frame, and by, I don't know, dropping quality and enforcing you not to write tests or anything, like, that's bad. And I definitely would not want to be in such a situation myself. But there are other times where business people just don't know these details. They know maybe there's an event they need to have a booth on, or they have a marketing announcement they need to make in 1 month or something like that. So they have this constraint, and they don't always take the time to explain this to the software development team. And they just say, okay, this needs to be done by February or something like that. And we feel frustrated. But what the best of us do, and what I learned over the years, is we are also professionals, so we can sit down with them and say, okay, our estimate says that we'll probably not be able to deliver by February. Let's make this work. Like, can we reduce the scope? Can we add more people? Can we deliver partially by February and then come up with a follow up or something? And then when you put the situation like that, these people change their maybe aggressive stance to a more neutral or friendly one, just because you're working with them, as opposed to saying, okay, that's not possible, I don't care, I won't do it, or it can be done. That gives them
Yeah.
so little room to work. And this is politics, right? It's a bit outside of our comfort zone that we mentioned earlier, but the minute we do that, our work relationships get so much better. Yeah.
No, I agree completely. I agree completely. Like you said, those are the things you gotta compensate in what they ask and what you can deliver in the best quality possible, right? So, exactly, yes.
And on the writing or not writing test, I mean, how much control can we give somebody about our practices? Like, they're gonna tell us how many commits we do in Git, or if we use storyboards or not. Like, where's the line? I think all these technical decisions should be made by the technical team. So if, of course, we can't make it as developers, but we have leads, we have maybe a team decision that we make. And yeah, it's just like you said, it needs to be a good fit. So if you're trying to work against everyone in the company, then yeah, it's maybe not a good idea to be there in the first place.
Like you said, it has to be a good fit. You will never know until
Yeah.
you will never know the reality until you join and start.
Yeah. I also heard people that ask, and I've done this a few times as well, try to get on a lunch or on a call with a developer, and they can give you so much more details than maybe a hiring manager or HR people. They don't know exactly. Like, you can ask them all these questions. So for me, it worked.
If you have the chance, absolutely, it's a good tip to talk to someone that is actually in the team that can tell you how they work. Yeah.
Right. So let's circle back to our earlier discussion. So you were having these issues, like not finding the right way to do scalable solutions, maybe not doing so well with interviews, and then you you took the leap of faith and decided to join.
Right. Joining the course, like I said, it helped me with my confidence. It helped me with actually uh, learning new concepts, learning new ways. Like, for example, I knew about solid principles in the past. I did. I'm an engineer, software engineer. I went through college and I learned about them, but I didn't really start applying them correctly until I went through the lectures and the course. Um, there's a lot of things I knew in my head, but I had them I would say hidden, and this brought me like wow, uh, like it opened up my mind even more, and that's how I feel. It opened up my mind in the interview processes, in the code skills, in how you face problem solving. For example, analyzing a lot the with diagrams or which whatever helps you to understand your solution before implementing it, and maybe finding issues with your solution before coding it. And yeah, like those things seem like common sense, but if you don't actually bring them to the surface, you don't start applying them, right?
Yeah, I I I understand you perfectly. I mean, uh, I also studied computer science in school and learned about the solid principles. And if somebody would ask me before joining the program what they were, I could tell them. But it's like you said, I probably lacked, and maybe that's the case for you too. I lacked why they are important. What happens when you don't follow them? What happens when you do follow them? Or this kind of experience that makes you think about them when you're coding, as opposed to just having some abstract knowledge that you never use because you don't know where to apply it. And it, that makes the whole difference how you actually run the decisions when you write the code in your head.
I think until you don't see the benefit in practice, you just have them in your mind, but you never really apply them. When you see the benefit, you realize that this is important and that you should always focus following those guides and no, I mean, it doesn't matter the complexity of what you want to solve, even if it's simple, but you follow the guidelines, you start in the right path, right? So that's pretty much it. Yeah,
with everything. I think with testing as well, it's up until the moment you see the benefits. When the first time when you have that confidence, yeah, ship it. If the test pass, I'm not worried about it. Until that happens, you don't really understand why you should write them. I mean, you know you should, like everybody's saying, okay, write tests, but why? Why? And it's
exactly.
exactly like that.
Yeah.
When you see that benefit, that cost benefit, it's like, okay, yeah, it's worth it. Now I can release every day or
Yeah.
every 5 minutes.
And that is something that I didn't learn in my previous jobs. I learned this in this course. I didn't learn about good practices and scalable solutions while working every day, because like you mentioned, the business, they want something maybe in a time frame, and sometimes you don't have a, let's say, a technical mentor that stops them and say, look, we need to implement it in the right way, and like reduce the scope, as you say. So what usually ends up happening is that you try to deliver whatever and any way you can. And yeah, this is my experience. I didn't have uh, a mentor in my previous jobs to guide me through solid principles and good practices. This is something I learned, or I started applying during the course and after in my the jobs I had after the course. Um, but it's something that since university I wasn't encouraged to apply.
Right.
Right.
I think it's because you can get away with it, right? You can get away with implementing software that's not easy to maintain over time, and you can still do it. Like no one will, I don't know, hold you accountable for it.
Exactly.
I heard this example that when you, for instance, have a medical emergency and you go to the doctor and you need to have surgery, you cannot tell the surgeon, hey, hurry up, just don't wash your hands, just get into surgery because I need the surgery now. Like, there's no way to tell him how to do it or how long it should take. Just go there and say, I have this problem, please help me. And that's it. And then you wait. You have no control over the whole process. That's because they're professionals that follow a certain guideline, and there's no way to control it. You're the client, right? But you cannot tell him how to do it or when, or if it should be this surgery or that surgery. Or like in software, everybody's trying to micromanage. Like your boss comes in and says like, yeah, don't do tests. um, you don't need code reviews, like, or any
Right.
other crazy thing you heard. So that's because there's no standard. Like nobody will say anything bad that you maybe have a software program that needs to be rewritten every 2 years because it's unmaintainable. So I think that's why we don't have these practices all over the place and followed by a lot of people, because you can still get away with it. So
Right. I agree 100%. Like you said, no one's life is in risk when you do bad code,
yeah,
or maybe depends the software
almost,
you're
yeah.
developing, but but usually no one's life is at risk if you, I don't know,
Right.
implemented something in a not so clean way. But like you said, you can get away with it, and no one's or no one's, I would say, yeah, responsible in 2 years saying, oh, that person implemented this way and we have to rewrite it, right?
Yeah.
You realize when you join that company 2 years later and you saw that someone did that 2 years before, and you're like, oh man. Well, but that's our job, right? Find something and try to improve it and fix it and make it work.
Yeah. The Boy Scout rule.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about your experience within the program for a minute. If you can tell us how you how you managed to do it. Like, for instance, how many hours per day did you study? How did you study? Like, did you go to the videos, or like what was that like?
Right. So when I joined the program, it was still the pandemic. I didn't have a job at that particular time, so it was quite easy for me to structure my days, watching certain amount of lectures per day. What I did is follow the lectures one by one. I realized that in every single lecture I was learning something. Like I mentioned before, some things were like common sense in some way, but they made me realize I had to bring them to the surface and start working on them and applying them. And I started to see the importance of why, like you said, the why we should apply them. But then I didn't have I started working in software and also working as a dive instructor. And I didn't apply this regularity of sitting down and having one lecture per day. What I was doing is everything I was learning in the lectures, maybe watching lectures in the weekends, maybe when I had some free time. But with every lecture, I was like, for example, the first module, the API module, I started applying things at work right away. So during the modules, I started applying things straight away. Also, I started modifying and changing my personal projects, applying these new techniques to practice. That's how I practiced. Find tiny projects, I don't know, consume some API and display it, and have apply the concepts with that tiny application, add caching and add tiny features one by one, applying the concepts. And that's how I was practicing. Because just by watching the lectures, you will understand them, but you will, when it comes down to applying them, even if you watch the entire lectures, you need to practice them, right?
Yeah.
There's no way you can just know everything by just watching someone telling you this is the way to go. But you need to go down and sit down and see why it works.
Yeah. Caio gives a great example of, if you watch a video of swimming, like swimming instructional, after watching the video, can you jump in the water and swim? No.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's not that easy.
If it would be that simple, I would be the best football player in the world because I watch a lot of football, right? So,
Right. Me
and I'm
too.
not.
So how long did it take to finish the program?
I think it took me a little bit more than a year, I think. Again, I was watching lectures at some point when I was feeling that I needed to go back to some concept or I wanted to apply them. And in my case, I found time when I was, let's say, without a current project or without diving so much. So I wanted to go down and sit down. And what motivated me to actually finish it and go down and sit down and watch the lectures is that what I mentioned in the past, that with every lecture I was watching, I was learning something new. Even if I wasn't applying at that particular time, I was like surprised about like, oh wow, this is amazing. I didn't know one thing could evolve to a much better solution, and I was surprised. In my mind, I was like, these guys know a lot. And that's what motivated me. I knew I was going to learn something new in every lecture. And the other thing is that it really made me feel part of a community, with the Slack community, where everyone is helping each other. So that's my motivation of going and sitting down. Even if a lecture is longer, you can structure it with like tomatoes, as Caio does, and Mike, and go ahead and watch it. That's the way I did it. And in the end, I finished the course. My plan is to re-watch it again from scratch, because I think I will see it from a different perspective completely. Now that I understand everything, and I can actually, it's like watching a movie twice, right? You start seeing details that you didn't see in the
Exactly.
beginning. And I think now I have the tools I need to face a problem and see which is the best way to solve it. Before, I only had one or two options I knew. Now I have much more options, and I know they work. So that's the confidence. I know they work. So if I know that if I follow those solutions, I know that something good is gonna come out of it. So in the past, I was doing things like you said, like on the go, see how it works, see how it goes, and if I have to change something, I might have to rewrite a lot of things. Now I start solving problems in a way that if I have to, because things change, right, all the time. So if they ask me for a change, I know it's not going to be a hard change. So that's the difference. I know my path is going to be clearer because I have the tools to expand my solution to be a more complex one if I want to, or change it easily if I need to.
And you usually do need to change it, right? Because that's how software works.
You have to change things pretty much every sprint, right?
So it's great when you have the code in such a way that is welcoming change. Not always, but in general, it's
the other thing that I think is top 3 of the benefits of having a clean solution is the how well you can understand the code. Maybe it's not the most efficient solution you can do, but I think it's more important if someone else can sit down and understand what you did than if it's like the best algorithm you can create in the world. Like we say, first you make it work and then you make it more efficient, right? So if you can make it work, but it's understandable and clean and someone can sit down and know what you did, I think it's more important, because it's going to happen that you sit down and you see code that someone didn't care about quality or readness, and no one's going to document it as well. So you sit down and you try to figure out, there's no unit tests, so you try to figure out what's the feature supposed to do. So basically you don't think just in the present, but you think in the future of, okay, what happens if someone else wants to or has to continue this feature or change it, right, or expand it.
a really funny code that any fool can write code that a compiler understands, but it takes a really smart and dedicated engineer to write code that another person can understand. It's exactly in that line.
Because everyone has their own way of their own style of coding, right? It's like your handwriting. Like everyone has their own handwriting.
But you still have to be able to understand it, as with handwriting. So
yes, exactly.
Same. So let's talk about the remote positions you now got access to, and you mentioned like interviews are a lot better now, and you feel confident as well. How long did it take from starting the program to getting into this, like getting better offers, being able to nail interviews? Like how was that like?
After module 1, which is the API module, I remember I had this interview where I had to solve a challenge. And the way I structured the API and the unit testing of it, and also the solution, I was implementing an MVP solution. The interviewers were surprised. They were surprised about the composition of the different parts, API, presenters, UI. And they even asked me questions about like, wow, how, like, it was new for them, right?
Nice.
It was new for them composing things this way. Like the app delegate was like 5 lines of code, and it's not about writing less code. It's about writing more organized code
Yeah.
in separation of concerns, right? I had this interviewer once that said, your solution has too many files, too many classes. And my answer was that, can you elaborate why that is a problem? Because each class is doing a particular thing, right? So, and in my experience, sometimes the interviewers are not as skilled as you think they might be.
Yeah.
And in my experience, I was feeling that way. I was feeling that the knowledge from module 1 was even more skilled than what they were actually asking me, or what they were,
not skilled, or maybe just not being exposed to that kind of principles and style. But then if you try to have a conversation about it, most of them will understand. It's just that if you've never been used to it, like imagine you're working on a code base with, I don't know, 1,000 lines, view controllers, and then somebody comes in and implements something with 15 lines per file, which is like, what's this? It's totally different than what I'm used to. So perhaps that can also explain it. But yeah, I understand. Like I also had these experiences as well. And I mean, again, it's either you match, like you have similar concepts and approaches to development, or you are brought in as an expert, as a consultant, and then you can educate the team on how to do things. Otherwise, it just won't work, uh, because they'll try to convince you to do whatever they have going, and it's not going to work.
exactly. I wanted to add to the topic we were talking in the past about what the course gave me. It gave me confidence on starting actually giving lectures inside the team. I started once a week when I was leading one of the teams, starting doing once a week. I called it roundtable presentations. So anyone in the team could present a topic that's of course related to like software development and related to the project. It didn't have to be related to the project, but it was any topic that anyone else could be interested in learning, right? So anyone can say, I want to talk about this topic, present it to the rest of the team in 1 hour. And I started doing the first ones. So I was feeling very confident in guiding others to follow these good practices and apply them in our project.
Very nice. I still want to ask you something about your setup. Let's say I mentioned at the beginning that it's pretty unique and very interesting to be working remotely like that and be able to have time for your own passions. Uh, and I'm sure a lot of the people watching would be curious how you actually did that. How did you started getting remote jobs? That allowed you to actually move from your home to like a different country, and how did that work for people who are maybe thinking about doing that?
Right. So so the tool I mainly use for getting offers is LinkedIn in my case. It's not the only one. I have also references from other companies I've worked and people I still get in touch, which send me job offers from outside job platforms. But I would say job platforms are a good way of getting job offers. Mostly are remote ones right nowadays. And And then having your own portfolio of apps that you can show is something is gonna really help on getting people to know you, the style and the way you if they want to check your code,
Yeah.
right? That really helped me a lot. So grab tiny projects, things that you can maybe implement in 1 week, and then improve them, and then add another feature and have your own portfolio. Open source, right? Open to public one. That's what really helped me in remote positions, and yeah, then people might ask how are they gonna pay me if I am a different country, right? For example, that was something I had to think about, and because I'm from Argentina, and right now the situation in Argentina is not the best in an economic sense. So going to a different country, having your own bank account nowadays, there is a lot of virtual wallets, right? You can use. People are really companies are really getting into those. There's other platforms that you can get paid to. I had some interviews where I couldn't go forward because they couldn't pay me.
Right.
There was no way we could match the payment solution. They just wanted to pay in Argentina, and I have no bank accounts there, and we just couldn't go forward. But it's not the main cases. It's not the main, right? Nowadays, if you want to get a remote job, like we said, it's the common thing nowadays.
Thanks for explaining that. I think that's super helpful.
And I would say being part of a community, it's really important. I finished the course, but I will stay part of the community. I will keep on going with the belt system. I think it's a really good motivation there. Your skill set is going to improve, and your mind is going to open a lot. Maybe there's things you already knew, but you are not applying, and you will know why you need to apply them. And my confidence, it really helped me with my own confidence. Knowing, sometimes you say, am I a senior developer? Am I knowledgeable? Do I know enough? And of course, you will never know enough. There's always a lot of things to learn. But the important thing is that you have the tools to learn those new things, right? And in the future, you need to learn something new, but you have the guidelines of how to achieve that knowledge, right? It's not just it's just that you have the tools to learn new things. It's going to help you with, let's say tomorrow you don't have Swift UI anymore and you have Swift UI 2.0. You have the tools on how to change Swift UI with Swift UI 2.0 and so on.
Yeah.
That's my main top 3, I would say.
Awesome. I really like them, especially the community, which I think is super important nowadays for us as developers. Just being able to exchange ideas, to contribute, to learn by seeing different use cases, different problems that maybe we are never exposed to that many situations in our day-to-day work. On the second one, you mentioned the belt system, and I need to explain this to the people that are not members of the iOS Lead Essentials program. We have a belt system similar to how belts in martial arts work. You start with a white belt, and as you progress through the program, as you get more achievements, you get different colors of the belts up until the black belt. So that's also very motivational. There's always a next step, next thing to do, next area to progress on. So that's pretty interesting. Okay, Damian. Any advice for our viewers today?
If you feel you need a change, just go for it and don't feel fear or afraid. Having leaps of faith could be really good, and then you will be glad you did it. Not only by joining the course, but with life, right? Like, go ahead and try to do it, right? get confidence of yourself and learn. And yeah, that would be my advice. But remove those structures that you feel you can't because of fear, and just go ahead and do it.
And it all starts with like a small decision, uh, like the snowball effect. So
Yeah, some people prefer to have a really maybe structured plan, and some people don't. It depends what makes you happy. For me, sometimes they ask me, how do you see yourself in 5 years? And my answer is, I had no idea I was going to be a dive instructor 5 years ago.
yeah,
Or living in the Philippines, or living in Roatan, or yeah, like if they asked me 5 years ago, I could never say I will be a dive instructor in Honduras. Like I was living in Buenos Aires, in Argentina, going to an office, right? So, and in 5 years from now, I can have wishes or I have ideas, but I don't know. I just do what makes me what makes me happy. Yeah, right at that time, and that's gonna guide me, and is gonna be guiding me to decisions that will make me happier, because that's what I am deciding at that time, right? So that would be my advice. Of course, sometimes you might say that was not a good decision, but that's life, right? That's what it is.
I really like it. If you're either too rigid or too chaotic, then you're just missing out. But there's this sweet spot in the middle, and if you have a bit of both, then you kind of have the structure of the life, have like you're organized, but you also reap the benefits of what life's gonna throw at you. And it's like your example where you say, okay, 5 years ago I had no idea I was gonna do this. And if you have that open mind, being open to new opportunities, then you can get them. Otherwise, if you're in the rigid area, then it's like, oh no, I can't do this. Like there's no way. So you just reject it.
Exactly.
I,
That's trying to be open mind, right? Trying to accept new things and not being so rigid, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's important to also have the other thing, because I know at least a few people that for them every new idea is a good idea. So you also have to learn how to say no to some things. Otherwise, it's like you never get anything done. So
Well, you have to have a little bit of organization on how to achieve that, right?
exactly,
Because I don't know, if you want to travel around the world, you will need money to buy flights, right? So
right.
you have to have some kind of plan on how am I going to get that money, or maybe I don't know. You need to have a tiny plan on step by step plan on how to achieve those goals. I would say, going as a concrete example, I think following the course is a good step to achieving remote positions or not remote positions, and having that confidence of skills that you need to find a job. That would be one of the steps.
Right. So Damian, thanks a lot for the time and sharing this story. I think it's an amazing one, and I'm glad I was able to talk to you about it. All the best of luck with your projects and with diving as well.
Thank you very much, Bogdan, for your time. And yeah, anytime, I'll be around here. If you want to learn scuba diving one day, just come over.
It's just been added to my list.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. For the people watching, if you want to learn more, just visit us at essentialdeveloper.com, where you can find a bunch of free resources to improve your iOS dev skills. And you can find it on the social channels as well. Thank you and see you soon.